If there is nothing that brings you back to the sticks, the game is a failure.
I'm over here on this side of town. Come on over here, try to clown. I never pipe down. If they weren't coming for me, then they definitely coming for me now. Use your common sense. Why is NASA Park Department of Defense? They divided up the seas into 33 degrees, feeding kids masonry. Bro, be careful what you read. Flatline. There's no superior bloodline. Flatline. You got me once, but that died. Ay, boy.
What's going on YouTube? My trolls, what's up? This is Logan Oren, and I'm back with a new video. Now, today, this video is a very special one because I'm actually kind of embarrassed or ashamed to do this video. And the reason why is because this is I guess you could call it a wish list video. And I've always hated these wish list videos that people make when it comes to video games, because typically wish lists are the epitome of tools used by casual gamers. You know, definitely not people who are serious about gaming, or who are serious about having games improve. So they'll put out these wish lists, and most of the time they are the most vain, surface level improvements or additions that it's just mind boggling, and it is mind numbing to have to watch these videos or to read the comments and posts that people put and make when they do this. So when it comes to NCAA 20, EA 20, NCAA college football, I am, of course, if you follow my channel at all, and as far as video games, and you know that I am not a fan of EA. You know that I loathe EA as a company, and the products that they put out are straight trash. And it definitely is something I've been very vocal with expressing when it comes to their product. Now 26, when it comes to 26, or sorry, 25. Now 25, I wasn't upset when the game came out, meaning that when I found out that they were coming out with a college football game, I wasn't mad. I'm not the kind of person, or that is a straight hater, where just because EA is making something that I'm going to hate it just for the fact that it is EA. Now, I am going to be very critical of it, and I think there's a difference between hating on it and being very critical and mindful of remembering the trends and the the trends and the what am I looking for? The traditions that the company has followed. So I don't hate the game and hate on the game. I just understand I am burned, and I feel, as a consumer who patronized this company for so long, I feel that they have not been able to satisfy what the hardcore simulation community, as well as the loyal community, they have not been able to fulfill what should have been fulfilled at this point in time, which is an authentic football game. So when the game came out, I wasn't angry, but I wasn't excited. So it's kind of cool that there's an updated game. However, this game is not where it should be. It's 2025, And when you think back to what games were capable of back in, when I was, first started, my gaming life, which was when I was in college, is really when I started playing college or sports games. And when you go back to, like, what was that, 2000? Sorry, 2000, no, 97, 97, because I graduated high school in 97, or 96, so 97 was my freshman year. And so being in the dorms and playing with, other, guys from the team and people in my dorm, and, I was playing NCAA game breakers, and, it just, took off from there. So going back from where those games were to NCAA college football 25, is it a different game? Obviously, to say that it's not a different game and it's not better, it would be disingenuous at the very least. But is it where a game with the technology improvements, is it where this kind of game should be? Absolutely, positively not. And so when we talk about, what this game should be, and the reason why I wasn't excited is because I knew what to expect from EA. I knew to expect a bare bones game that barely had anything that the games in the past has had. And I knew that just the basic things, the very basic game modes and features, were going to be absent from the game, and then slowly in increments added back into the game as the years continued, to go by, as they shuffle these features, these recycled features, as new features, into the game. So I'm sorry, EA, you had 11 years, 10, 11 years to come out with a stellar game. This game is basic to its core. It's not pure trash, it's just garbage. And the reason why it's garbage is because all it is an updated game with updated graphics and, updated stadiums and updated uniforms and updated players, and that's it. Everything else is really lackluster and basic and bland. So yeah, so the fact that it's not an old game, and it's at least kept up with the gameplay and with some of the standards that a game should have, is what, at this point in time in the year 2025, that's what makes it a little relieving. Now, could I go back to playing NCAA 13 or NCAA 12? No, I probably couldn't, because I just, it would just be hard for me too. Because really, I'm trying to think. There's really nothing that I can think of off rip that's in the game, that's in 26, that's in 25, that's not in 20, or that's not in 13 or 12 or maybe even 14. I don't really remember much from that game because I didn't buy it. But the game is just heartening that it's not to where it should be. So what my video is going to kind of touch on today is some things that I feel as if, that the game needs to have in order to be palatable. In order for this game to hold up to standards of really one of what this game should be at its core, plus where should the game be in the year 2025 in reference to technology and, comparing it to real football, real sports. And so I made this video months ago, and but I did it over audio because I took some notes because I wanted to make sure that I said everything and I covered everything that I needed. Um, and so I took notes, but I just, went through my notes and I did it in just with audio. And I was going to then take some video and overlay the audio over, but and I just never got a chance to come up with some video to lay over, to have the audio overlaid on it. So I just kind of never got a chance to I just never got a chance to put out the video. But I figured, what, the game's coming out like in a month, so or a month and a half. But I really should probably put this video out. So I decided to just do it on camera, and I don't want to be reading from my notes on camera. But at this point, I don't care. Now I am driving, so I can't really like go through the notes like I want to. But you may see me look down from time to time because I want to make sure that I'm remembering the thoughts that I'm trying to express that I really want to talk about. So let's get down to what I feel like the game needs in order to be a acceptable football game. All right, expect an acceptable sports game, college football. So the first thing that pops into my mind is the progression, the game logic progression in the game. And what I mean by that is, I did a little video, months ago about how the game logic is completely flawed when it comes to a player's progression on the field and how it ties into awards and championships and titles and things like that. And what I did was I showed that I would have players that were winning, awards. They were winning, your Player of the Year awards, and they would be leading the nation in certain stats. But when it came to certain, things, specifically the what's it called, like the All American list, they were being left out. So would have like defensive linemen who were, they were leading the nation in tackles and sacks, and they were, the defensive lineman of the year award. They would get the, defensive tackle, the defensive tackle of the year award, or the defensive end award, the linebacker award, whatever, or they might win the Heisman. But specifically, those where they would, be the Player of the Year award winner. And when it comes to the All-American list, they're left out. So you're telling me, and this wouldn't be a case where I would have, let's say, an anomaly where I've got like a freshman or a sophomore who is winning these awards. We're talking about juniors and seniors. And and I would think, okay, well, they want the winners, or they want the All-Americans to be upperclassmen. But no, these were juniors and seniors who were winning these awards, who were leading these stats. And, I would have Player of the Year, or Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Lineman of the Year. And we go to the All-American list, and they're not there. Or, I would then say, okay, well, maybe they were, their second team All-American. And then I open the drop box menu, go to second team All-American, boom, they would be non-existent, wouldn't be listed as second team All-American. And then eventually I was like, when I made the video, I thought to myself, hey, you know what? I never actually looked at the and see if this was affected when it came to all conference. So I went through and I looked for all conference, and the same players who would be, who were defensive player of the year, or lineman of the year, or linebacker of the year, and sometimes even the Heisman winner was not even all conference. So, the fact that you've got this flaw within the game where you don't have this progression of what happens in the game versus, the outcomes are just completely unrealistic. I also said that it made no sense that I had a running back that had led the nation in rushing yards for 3 years, won the Heisman 3 years straight, but that player did not get drafted. And I thought to myself, that made no sense. And I'm not going to go through the whole story, but it made absolutely zero sense that I had a Heisman winner 3 years straight not be drafted into the NFL. And I could understand that the game has got to have some kind of standard when it chooses players to who are going to be considered drafted. I understand, like, I get it, but at the end of the day, we're talking about realism. Like the actual play of the game has got to mean something. So if we're playing games, like if I'm leading, I'm dominating in stats for whatever it is, rushing, passing, whatever it is, but if I am that great, I understand that the NFL looks for more than just performance, because the leading rusher in Division 3, if you were a 2,000-yard rusher in Division 3, that doesn't mean that you're good enough to play in the NFL. That doesn't mean that you're good enough. So there's a standard of ability. However, in reality, there's no way in the world that you would have a player that would win the national or win the Heisman Trophy 3 years in a row and the team would not take a chance on that player. There's no possible way that would happen. So there's got to be some kind of recognition for play in the actual play in the game to what happens with the progression of the players. So if you're dominating your position and you're winning national player of the year awards, you're All-Americans. You're an All-American. There's no way that you're not becoming or being listed as an All-American. I would have, and it was crazy that this, my running back who was, winning the Heisman each year. So he won the Heisman, his sophomore and junior year, and then he comes back as a senior. And when it came to preseason All-American, guess who was not preseason All-American? The running back who just won the Heisman 2 years in a row and is coming back for his senior year. So he wasn't first team or second team preseason All-American. So the fact that this game has got a serious logic progression flaw is, it needs to be fixed. Like that's not so much a, something from a wish list, but that's an improvement in the game that needs to be made. So first off, the progression has got to be improved in the game. It needs to have logical progression in the game. The second part is that that this is more so of an improvement as well, is the recruiting. So the recruiting in the game, I think, is trash, and I'm going to have to tone this down because I could talk about recruiting forever, and and really it would be almost like I'm not saying anything. But the recruiting is completely unrealistic. The recruiting is, I don't like the whole system of how the recruiting is done. I actually, even though the recruiting is bad, and it's always been bad, I've always hated the fact that you as a coach, when you're recruiting your players, you don't have control over you don't have control over the interactions with the players. I mean, coaches know what they're doing. You know, college coaches, head coaches know what they're doing, and so when it comes down to when they are recruiting a player, they know how to talk to recruits. And so I don't like the fact that when we're recruiting that you've got, let's say when you're trying to hard sell or you're trying to sway, you can't itemize the pitches that you're trying to either hard sell or you're trying to sway. They give you a pack of 3 areas, and you have to choose those 3 areas regardless of whether or not there's no point to arguing it. If you know that the player has no interest in this pitch, in this area, and you go and you're choosing a group of things, and there's always a time where you've got that they have an interest in 2 of the 3 things, and then one of them is either a low grade on your part, or they just don't have any interest in it. And so as a coach, then as a coach, then it's more likely where you're not going to spend time beating a dead horse. If you know the player's not interested in this specific thing, this pitch, then you're not going to waste your time talking about it. Now, what I would like to see is, I would like to see some control for itemizing what you have an interest, or what you're going to pitch to your recruit. I would like to see where the swaying and the hard and the soft pitches actually matter, because I think this game is predetermined from the get go, and you don't really see much improvement and much change when you're swaying or you're hard selling or selling a particular pitch. So I've noticed that some people say that recruiting is so easy and they have it down to a science. Whatever, I disagree. I would love for them to show me how, but all of the videos that I've seen, or the explanations, are pretty much they're bland, and they don't show how you could then use this as a science where it's helpful. But I would like to see where, because I've noticed that when you have a player and you're recruiting them, because I said I feel like it's predetermined from the beginning, that once a player starts to trend down, where they're not as interested in you, then it's over. I have, at no point in time have I been recruiting a player and seen where that the red arrow starts to goes down and they're trending down, where there's nothing that I've ever been able to do to counteract that, to bring them back up. So I feel like there's got to be a legitimate rhyme or reason to how recruiting is done. Kind of a wish list thing would be, I would love to see where you have the ability to sway the interest, or sorry, to sway the interest level of that a recruit has for something. And what I mean by that is that, let's say a player has it's a deal breaker that they don't want to play for a team that doesn't have that doesn't offer the ability for them to play early. They don't have the ability to give them good playing time. Now, there are outstanding coaches that go to players that can take recruits who they want to play early, and because they are so good at what they do, that they can take one of those recruits who want to play early, and they can change that from a deal breaker to it not meaning anything. That they can show that recruit that there's a reason why, if you come to play for me, yeah, I know you want to play as a freshman. I know you want to play early. But if you come from me, I'm going to show you, and they're going to explain to him why that does not matter. And why, if he comes and plays for me, then it's going to be a better situation, even though he's not going to get the playing time that he wants. That happens in real life, and so when coaches are able to do that, that would be a very cool thing to be able to have in the game, where a coach, and this is something that's on the coach or the team level. So that doesn't mean that if he really cares about playing for a legendary coach, that if I'm able to then get him to not care so much about that, then that means that it shouldn't be across the board, that his interest for that dies down. That means, what I mean is that his desire, to play for a legendary coach just shouldn't matter when it comes to playing for me. So, to me, I think this is an outstanding way to make recruiting a little bit more meaningful, because you can then you can do something with the deal breakers, instead of there being a deal breaker and you're like, yep, it's a deal breaker, so I'm just not going to him. Some people have deal breakers that are true, and some people have deal breakers that are just for show. Meaning, these are young people, young men. And so because they are young, they don't really know what they want. And so their mind can be changed. So I feel like it is, to be able to have authentic changes and abilities to change what the ability to change those factors would be an excellent thing to add to the game. All right, so with recruiting, that's kind of it, because I could ramble on for more for when it comes to recruiting, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop at that point when it comes to recruiting. So the next wish list, a thing that I would, that really needs to be added to the game, is, it ties into why this series or this game cannot and will never be able to get off the dime, and the reason why this will never happen is because NCAA is a two-dimensional game. All right, it is a very two-dimensional game, and what I mean by that is that there are really only two things that you can do in this game, two things that you can do, and those two things are, you can play the games and you recruit. That's literally all you do in this game. You play games and you recruit. Now, I feel like there's got to be more, because this game gets so boring, because all you do is play games and then recruit. There's nothing that is meaningful that makes you want to come back to the game except just to play the next game. That's it. And you know, if we're trying to be simulation and we're trying to make it realistic, then the game needs more than that. It can't just be play the game and then recruit and then play another game and then recruit and then that's it. Now, I think that, Road to Glory kind of has the right idea, but since that game mode is straight whack, it doesn't mean anything, so it doesn't accomplish that adding to the game. It's really hard to get enjoyment from Road to Glory because of the way that it is designed, how archaic it is. It tries to be realistic, but it's not very realistic at all. It is arcade to its core. It's unrealistic to its core, and that's what makes it very boring. That's what makes you get tired of it, and you get what's the word? You get burned out from it very easily and very quickly. So what I would like to see is meaningful, things in between the games. So what do I mean between the game? I'm talking about practices, but I'm talking about meaningful practices. Now, I know that you can, between games, you're going to play Alabama this week, so you can go to the practice menu or option, and then you can play where you can set up your offense and defense, and then you can choose different plays. I know you can do that, but that's not meaningful. That's really not meaningful. What would be, when I say meaningful practice, this means that, we're talking about putting your players through drills, and not these stupid drills that they have that do not correlate into actual play and gameplay. And 2K is basketball is one of the biggest offenders of this, where you've got these games that these little when you go to your practices in the My Life or the whatever it's called, and you can go to practice and it has these drills, and these drills are not conducive to real football or real basketball inside the game. So I understand, they want them to make them interesting. They want them to be challenging, and okay, whatever. Make drills that are fun. However, they also need to be drills that are realistic and that correlate to the game. And not only that is, the practices need to be actual practices, things that would happen in a practice. Like if you've got your skeleton drills, your inside drills, all of these things that you would do in actual football, in college practices, those things should be going on. Now, next, this is where not your recruiting, but this is where your coaches come into play. So you also should have like a scout team. And I think that if you added this to the game, this would add a whole new huge level to the authenticity of the game, and the interest level of the game. It would fire this game and dynasty mode up a notch. So what do I mean by this? Having scout players, having a scout team, and this is going to be aligned with having not just a head coach and then an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. But this also should incorporate scouts. Or your coaches should have a scout grade. And so what that means is that when you're going and you're going to play a team, let's say, I'm Miami and we're going to play UVA next week, then there is, in order to prepare for that game, you don't just show up on game day and be like, yeah, this, we practice some plays and that's it. We have ran through some drills and whatever. We recruited at the beginning of the year, and maybe I've moved some people up and down on the depth chart. No, that's not how you prepare for a football game. There's film. Coaches watch film. They scout the teams that they're about to play. Now, I'm not saying that that there should be film that you watch. I mean, that would be awesome if you could have film of the other team that you could watch. But when the team comes out, when the offense comes out, the offensive coordinator, the offensive coaches have devised a plan based off of what their defense is going to do. So when you go out there and to practice, the varsity offense is going to practice against a scout team defense based off of the scouting report of their defense, and vice versa with the defense. They're going to line up against a scouting reported play system with formations and schemes and plays that their offense is going to run. And they're going to play against it. So it's not like I have to, so based off of your level of scouting ability, then they're going to give you the kinds of plays or the kinds of formations and just basic plays that the other team is going to run, so that you can beforehand, you have an idea of what the team is going to do. Now, you're not going to be able to know exactly what the team is going to do and what plays they're going to run, but you do have an idea. And just like in real football, you do have an idea of how, how a team is going to line up against certain formations. You know how a team is going to treat certain players or certain formations and schemes. You, as you're practicing, are given a scouting report, and it's going to spit out plays. While, so if you're on offense, all right, you're going to they're going to give you like a quick little rundown of what you're practicing, like what you're expecting to do, and then they're going to they're going to give you on defense. They're going to if you're on the defense, then they're going to come out in formations and certain plays, base plays, and you have to align your defense to those formations, and you have to choose defensive schemes that are going to match up with the kind of plays that the scouting report says that they're going to run. And on offense, it's the same way. You're going to come out, you're going to line up in different formations. You're going to see what the defense or what kind of defenses that they run. You're not going to see everything, but the better your scout is, or the better your coach's scouting ability is, then that's going to show you more on what you're going to be able to do, and or what you're going to see. And so, of course, you're not going to know everything, but the better their rating is, then the more you're going to see that's closer to what that team is going to do. So that would revolutionize the game. And so let's go back to the scout team. So what's the point of the scout team? So the scout team is, of course, these are the players that kind of really don't matter. But it's not in college. You don't just take the first team and then you practice against the second team defense. I mean, yes, in practice, the first team does go up against the defense. In team drills, in team, in the team section or the team period, that does happen. But when it comes to like the scouting, no, it's against the scout team. So where do those scout team players come from? Now, I feel like this is where we kick it up another notch, because the player, the team, or the game already gives you, it creates players that don't exist. Like, so let's say if you and that, now I don't know if it does it for this game because I haven't really paid that much attention to it, because for the most part, I have players that I'm able to recruit all of the players that I need for open positions. But let's say in the older games, then if you weren't able to, let's say you needed a linebacker, but you weren't able to recruit a linebacker, like nobody signed with you, then it would give you a walk-on. So it would create walk-ons for those positions. So I feel like what should happen is that your recruiting year, so your recruiting class, when they come in, you're going to take the freshmen and you're going to take the players that you redshirt, and they're going to fill in as scout team players. And then with the rest of the spots that they need, then the computer creates scout players. Now, let's kick it up a notch. So what happens is, like in real life, you do have some of these players that are on scout team that become breakout players. Whether they were recruited or they were walk-on recruits or walk-on scout team players. You do have guys that come out and they become outstanding players. So how unique and authentic would it be that every once in a while you might have somebody on the scout team that progresses to the point where they have the ability to switch over to the varsity, and they become an actual good player and become in the rotation or maybe even start. So I think that would add this whole level of realism and authenticity to the game that it has never had before. So, meaning adding these things to the game of meaningful practices, aligning it with scout teams and scout team players, and meaningful practices with drills and scouts who go out and create scouting reports and design plays and practices and practice routines for your scouting report, I think is something that is highly needed in this game. And as a coach, you're setting up things that are, you have the ability to set up things on a team level. So you're setting up or scheduling practices, and you're scheduling meetings, and you're scheduling, dinners and things like that, meals that coaches do. But we don't get that in the game. As a dynasty player, or as a dynasty player in this mode, you play a game, you recruit. Play a game, you recruit. That's it. So to the point where it gets so bland that at the end, like, I see myself getting so bored by the middle of the season, because all there is to do is play the game and then do some recruiting. That, let's say I've done all the recruiting, I've gotten all the recruits that I need. I'm bored, and I'm waiting until the postseason, to the playoffs. So I'm simulating games, towards the end, because I don't feel like playing the games anymore. because there's nothing else that's bringing me to the sticks except for game, recruit, game, recruit. That's it. I'm going through the motions. There's nothing else to the game, and I don't think that EA gets it, and I don't think all the bootlickers that are out here that just cheese for this game and cheese for EA, they don't get that the game is stagnant. I don't care what you do to gameplay. I don't care how much you how good you make the blocking, how good you make the physics of the game. If there is nothing that brings you back to the sticks, the game is a failure. So, I of course am very adamant in the, what do you call it, in the realism and the simulation of the game, but everything else, like all of that other stuff, has to be important too. So I can, I feel like, realism, it's not really, or simulation, kind of like a word that really doesn't get mentioned anymore. You've got some people that are still holding on. Ryan Moody, he's still holding on. And, but that's it. Sim Standard is, we know, I don't even know if they even call themselves the Sim Standard anymore. But, of course, they fell off a long time ago. But, everybody that was hard into the simulation movement, I know these guys are older because they're around my age, so they're getting older, and, their lives are changing and it's not as important anymore. But it's important that it's still entertainment. But realism, simulation, they can fight the ones who are still important, or who are still screaming simulation. I'm letting them fight that fight. I'm going to champion that fight as well, but the replay value, like, that's my thing. That's the thing that a guy who, yes, I care about the gameplay, but the gameplay is not what makes me want to, instead of me taking a nap, or me, watching The Office for the 100th time, or the thousandth time, that's not making me want to play the game over that. So, we've got to, I'm going to fight that fight, until they make these games enjoyable. Road to Glory, they make an attempt, but it's not. It's not what it is. That's not what happens in the game. That's not what happens in college football. And because it kills me, because the game mode. What did I say? I got to go to my notes. What did I say about that? Okay, so what I said is that the coach's involvement needs to be on a team level, and not just the way that it is like in Road to Glory, because in Road to Glory, as a player, the only control and the only decisions that you really get to make are, you get 6 hours. So it's not realistic. You get 6 hours or however many, and those 6 hours are used to make every crucial decision in your life as a player. Because, yeah, that's realistic. Because you as a player, you have 6 hours, but you can either decide to spend those hours either resting, or going into class, or studying, and or healing, so that you can heal your body for the next game. Because I guess apparently, when you're studying, you're staying off your feet, and let's say if you hurt yourself, you sprain your ankle, you can rest to heal, or you can spend time studying. But apparently, if you're studying, I guess you're running around when you study. Your body can't heal when you're studying, so you can only spend a certain amount of time studying and then a certain amount of time healing. Like, that's stupid. That's not real life. That's not real life. So it kills me when they take all of this stuff and they try to, like, I get the way that they're trying to make it realistic, because, as an athlete, as a college athlete, you have to be able to manage your time. You've got to manage your schedule. And so, but this is not how it's done. This is not how you manage your schedule. You don't prioritize your life in that way. You don't prioritize, the fact that, oh, I could go out and I could party. I could go out and I could party, or I could, where party, which means I could just basically go to a party and chill and just be seen around, but I can't heal and I can't let my body rest during that time. I guess I need to go and sit in a cryo chamber, for however many hours in order for my body to heal. Like, that's not realistic. So you can't sit here and then try to take realistic aspects of the game and then add it into a game in a cartoonish, arcadic way. So, like, that needs to come out. And so however you deal with players, however the coach deals with the players, that has to change. So the last thing is more so, this is kind of a gripe, more so, but it's something that I don't see how this is going to work in the game. Now, it's it's gotten to the point where it's bad, where you've got players, gamers who are so hard up for a football game that they're just so happy and they're willing to accept a mediocre game, and they're going to going to get excited about old features in the game that used to be there, and they're going to get hyped up and they're going to get excited when these features are then added to this game, to this new game that should have had that feature to begin with. Because I'm sorry, the 2 years that you had to make this game, that was long enough for you to have this stuff added to the game. Like, I'm not an idiot, and we're not idiots. Yes, you do have idiots out there, and EA, yes, you've got some bootlickers who will just not care. But for you to act like you could not have, added the high school part to this game is a lie. If you were to say that you couldn't do it, you're lying. If you could not put any of the features, if you're saying that you could not put any of the features into this game, that have been in there for years, you're straight up lying. And these are the things that make me not even want to, buy the game, because you're playing to the emotions of your consumers, of your patrons, and sick of it. So what you do is that you're going to add, and I guess this was one of the things that I found out. Well, we know that it's true, but you're adding coaches to the game, and this is something that gets people excited. And yeah, we can play with coach whoever, and you get excited, and you're acting like this is a big thing. And honestly, all right, YouTube, I'm back. I apologize. My mic died, so I had a little technical, snafu. I didn't realize that when the mic battery died, that it basically just cut off audio. I thought it just switched back over to the mic on the device, but so I'm gonna try to pick back up where I left off. I accidentally, well, I didn't accidentally do it, but I threw away my notes. So I'm gonna try to remember everything that I wanted to say, and so we're gonna go from there. So before the audio cut off, so I'm talking about the coaching, and the coaching as a feature in the game, and how my issue with the coaching is that it's only adding the coaching, having actual real coaches in the game is basically nothing but a surface level addition. It's nothing but cosmetic. And the reason why I say this is because I don't believe that this game is going to be able to replicate and authenticate the actual coach's mind. Because what is the valuable part about having the coach? It's not just the name, although the prestige of having the name of the coach being in there is important. It's not everything. So it's not what brings the value to the game. The value of the coach is his mind, his ability to make calls, to be able to make decisions and do things that others can't, and to do things in a way that only that coach would do it. And so I don't feel as if this game has the ability to replicate the coach's mind when it comes to like what decisions that a coach would make, the kind of recruiting that the coach would make when it comes to recruiting, what personnel would they put at these certain positions, what kind of plays would they call, what would they do if it's first and 10 versus third and 5, or third and short, or fourth and 1. Will this game be able to replicate the coach's ability in doing these things, hiring, the assistant coaches? And I think that to answer that question, we only have to go back to look at Road to Glory. And when we look at Road to Glory, the abysmal, horrible play calling and coaching that happens in that game mode shows you, or it gives us an idea of, is this game capable of replicating good coaching? And especially to the point where we're talking about individual, real coaching decisions. Uh, because I honestly feel like this is going to go, when you think back to how it is in Madden, where you've got NFL players that are complaining to EA about their rating, and where it almost feels like they want to take legal action because they feel like they are being slighted in this game in their ratings. I feel like with the coaching, it's going to be that times 1,000, because the way that things are done in Road to Glory are completely, that like in Road to Glory, the coaches don't even make decisions that a horrible coach would do. Like no college level coach would make the kind of decisions that the Road to Glory coach does. And so we have to hope that the game can. So if we're playing for Colorado, is the game, is the coach in the game going to be able to replicate the decisions that Coach Sanders would make? Would he be taking the player out at the times where this game tends to do? Because that's like one of the biggest gripes, is that the coach tends to always take the player out at times where no real coach would take the player out. And just the play calling when they should be running, the computer then wants to pass the ball, and when the coach should be calling a pass play, then they're going to run the ball. So it's just like the decision making in Road to Glory is just trash. And I don't feel as if adding the coaches, to that they're going to be able to do individual coaches any kind of justice. The only thing that adding coaches to this game helps is just bragging rights, to say that you played using this coach. So it has to be across the board where they can replicate this game, not just to, because it's only going to be beneficial when you're playing against the computer. Because when you're playing against someone else, then you're playing against the actual player's mind. You're playing against the person who's picking up the sticks and playing with it, and not against the computer's brain. So you're not really playing against that coach, you're playing against that player. And so I just, it would be nice, it would be awesome if EA can be able to translate, a coach's mind individually for each coach into this game. I just don't see them being able to do it. So, the coaching is just surface level. It's cosmetic. It's just something that I don't think is going to be able to be beneficial as a legitimate add-on to this game. This is something that is bootleg at best. So there's some things that I was going to talk about. I'm just going to cut it off. I'm going to cut it out. And the last point that I just want to talk about is, my final thoughts is, I feel like the way that we have in the sim community, in the gaming community, the way that we have approached EA in the matter of this game has been all wrong. And in order to either get answers or to get improvements, we need to change up our strategy. So we have been coming to EA, and when it comes to Ryan Moody or Gedden or Big Play Killer, all these guys, from back in the day who have put in a lot of work and, tried to talk about and to show the standard of simulation in sports, specifically football gaming. They've done a lot of work, and they have approached it as, why, EA, are you not fixing this? Why do you refuse to make these changes? Why do you refuse to add these things? Whether it be gameplay issues or features or whatever it is, it's always been, why do you refuse to do it? I think we need to switch that up, and we need to change the way that we approach EA, and we need to now start approaching them asking the question, not why do you refuse to do these or to make these changes or to fix this or to add this. We need to approach them and ask them, is it that you just can't do this? Is the problem that you cannot or don't have the ability to fix the blocking? That you don't have the ability to fix the tracking? That you don't have the ability to add these things? People have been joking and, picking on EA for I don't know how long, since 2005, when 2K has been able to have a legitimate halftime show or halftime highlight reel with commentary and a recap, ESPN recap show, SportsCenter recap show with commentary, and EA has done nothing at all to try to add that or to replicate that. And people have been asking and complaining and joking about this for years. But we just come and ask, why won't you do this? And we got to stop thinking that EA is just doing it because they're lazy, or EA is just doing it because they refuse to do it, or they don't want to do it because people are going to buy the game anyway, so they don't have to. We got to stop asking that question, because that question and that approach has not worked at all. And they can just ignore that because they don't have to. They don't have to answer it. But instead, Ryan, I think that you got to start asking them, is it that you just can't do this? Have you reached the limitations of what your technology, your engine, or your developers can do? That you can't add these things into the game, that you can't fix these things in the game, you can't make these kind of innovations, and you can't make these kind of improvements. That's where we have to be in approaching EA, because that's the way that I feel. After all of these years, I don't think that it's just a case of they just refuse to do it or they won't do it. I think it's more on the lines that they just can't do it. And if we do that, then at least we've got a leg to stand on. If they can just be honest and say, hey, look, we've tapped out on this engine. We've tapped out on what the PS5 and the Xbox can do. we cannot add these things into the game, or we can't, or our developers, like we've tried, we just can't figure out how to put these things into the game. You can't. There's no way that you can get me to believe that, because at this point in time, even with them just adding little by little, little piece by little piece by little piece in increments every year, eventually they should have met up and matched up to these things that we are asking. You know, for years they should have been able to do this. And even going into that 11-year gap between 14 and 25, and even with the 2-year gap, they should have been able to have 25 being the most innovative football game that we've had. We have not had anything innovative in this game, in these football games, for I don't know how long. Yeah, they've added some things. They keep trying to push these little features. They keep trying to push this whole story mode, and they can't even do that right and make it exciting, because they don't have I don't think they have the ability to do these things. Not just they don't have the drive. I don't believe they have the drive either. I feel like they could probably, if they had the drive, they might be able to get the people and the developers in, and the technology that they could do this. They could, start an engine from the ground up, so that they can build all of these things and make a truly innovative game. But we don't have that, because they don't. I don't think they have the drive. So because they don't have the drive, they don't have the capability. So when you go to the table and we realize that this game is just as trash and boring as 25 was, then I think you need to go to them and ask them, and just ask them, look, can you just be honest and tell us, can you do this or can you not? Can you add this or can you not? So I'm gonna stop there, because this video is pretty long, as it is probably one of my longest on video games in a long time. So I'm gonna end it there, and that's gonna be it. And we'll see what happens when the game comes out. I think it releases next week, or the early release is next week. I'm still to the point where I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it or not. I know I paid for the EA Play, or the EA Early, whatever it's called, where I was able to play the game, not early, but I was able to play. I was able to play it early. Or no, not I was able to play it early, but I was able to play it before I bought it. And, so I didn't get the pre-release, but I was able to play it before, I actually bought the physical disc. So I forgot to delete that, or to cancel that. So I might still have it. And if I do still have it, I'll, try to download it, play it, and see how similar it is. If it's just basically the 26 with like a few bells and whistles, then I'm gonna forego getting 26, because I'm a grown ass man now. So to sit here and to act like I'm a little kid, and to treat this like this is something revolutionary when it's not, I can't do that. Dropping almost $100 on a game that's basically nothing compared, that it's not much better than its previous, successor or predecessor, I can't do that. I don't do that anymore. As when I was younger, I could do that. I've got, my iPhone. I have an iPhone 15. I haven't, in the iPhone that I had before that was the XR. And, before that it was the 6, I think. So I refuse to sit here and, buy each installation of this phone when it's barely getting better each year. Some people, like, you want to do that. If that's you, that's you. I can't, knock what you do, but you're not really, you're not, by doing that, you're not encouraging, and um, you're not influencing the company to do better. You're giving them all the ammunition to just do whatever they want to do, because they know that people are going to be desperate and silly and naive enough to just buy it, even though it's a barely improved product of the previous year. So I am, it's the, you know it's still out on whether or not on what I'm going to do for this year, but we will see. So that's it. I'm gonna cut it off for good this time. If you have any questions, comments, gripes, complaints, put them there in the comment section. This is Logan Orm, the Troll for Truth. Why? Because the truth should mean something.
Trolls roll out.